started.
Okay, so good news is it looks like everybody has turned on their video camera. I'm very excited about that because this is all about having conversations, and you can't have a conversation with somebody if you can't see that person. So very proud of everybody from doing that for us. One of the things I want everybody to remember is that this is about a conversation between all of us. Stacy is going to be sharing a lot of really cool thoughts and information with us. But if you have a question or if you want to know something a little bit further, either raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we'll make sure we call the question out so that Stacy has a chance to talk with you and answer you. We are recording this session as we do all of our virtual Bridge Club sessions. And this recording is made available to our All Access members after the fact. If you're not an All Access member, you can go to our website and learn how to join. If you are an All Access, you will get the recording automatically after we finish up today. And we're going to be having a toast here in just a little bit, so do make sure you have your beverage. So all that said, Stacy has some really terrific content for us today about how we can appreciate and adjust and recognize our personal branding. So I'm going to turn this over right now to the vet recruiter, Stacy Pursell. And thank you, Stacy, for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Catherine, for letting me host the Bridge Club today. And normally we start with the toast, but I'm going to say a few words before I begin. And I'm going to say a few words. As I say them, certain things are going to come in your mind immediately. So remember those words that come to mind. So the first word I'm going to say is Disney. So when you think of the word Disney, what are some words that come to mind? The next word is Starbucks. And the third word is Southwest Airlines. So when I said the word Disney, what words came to mind? And feel free to speak up.
Fun.
Kids.
That's good.
Starbucks for me, expensive.
Lifesaver.
Customer service.
Yeah, customer service.
So when I thought of Disney, I thought of Mickey Mouse, the Magic Kingdom, Cinderella's Castle, the concept of family fun and good customer service. And when I said Starbucks, I thought of coffee, of course. I also thought about all the good experiences. You can get coffee anywhere, but people go to Starbucks because of the experience. And then maybe you even thought about the incident that happened at Starbucks a few weeks ago. When I said Southwest Airlines, of course, that depends on if you've ever flown on that airline before. But I thought of peanuts. I thought of no assigned seats. I thought about flexible, friendly, and good customer service. So all of the things that popped into your mind when I said those words, those are all examples of branding. And in this case, it's company branding or product branding. And today I'm going to be talking about another form of branding, and that's personal branding. So when I started in the recruiting profession almost 20 years ago, 21 years ago, nobody was talking about personal branding. Personal branding did exist, even though nobody was talking about it, but it wasn't something that people recognized. And now the word or the phrase personal branding is heard frequently, especially within the employment marketplace or career development circles. So now I do want to propose a toast to great experiences. Here's my mug. This is my new mug. It says, I don't know who you are, but I will find you and recruit you.
Nice.
Very good one. All right, cheers, guys.
So, yeah, so my toast is about personal experiences. I'm not just talking about having a great experience, either personally or professionally. I'm talking about giving great experiences to the people around you and the people that you meet on a daily basis. So it doesn't matter if you already know the person or if the person that you meet is a stranger, but if you focus on providing a great experience in every way that you can, then you've already mastered personal branding, even if you don't know it. So I propose a toast to great experiences. May you give them and may you get them in equal measure, and may they lead to more success in every way.
Cheers.
Here, here.
So there are 6 areas that I'm going to address today. The first is the definition of personal branding. The second is the process by which personal branding works in the employment marketplace and what you can do to influence it. And the third is how perception becomes reality in the employment marketplace and the dangers of misperception. In the fourth area is the impact of the internet and social media and the impact they have on personal branding. In the fifth is which elements of your personal brand are the most valued. And 6, why personal branding has never been more important than it is today. So the first point, what is the definition of personal branding, and what exactly does that mean? And to answer this question, I'm going to use 2 definitions that are basically the same, but also different. And the first one comes from Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, personal branding is essentially the ongoing process of establishing a prescribed image or impression in the mind of others about an individual, a group, or an organization. And that sounds sterile and informal, but I also have a different definition. And this is in the form of a quote that I recently came across, and I don't know where I saw this quote, but it's, "Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after an experience with you becomes your trademark." And the part of that saying that I want you to focus on is how you leave others feeling after they have an experience with you. That is the definition of personal branding. And forget words like image or impression. Instead, focus on how other people feel after having an experience with you, because how they feel will directly impact what they think about you. And those 2 things go hand in hand. So the next question that you might be asking is, how exactly does personal branding work? Well, it's a process. It's an interaction between you and other people. And remember 2 things about personal branding. First, it's a never-ending process. It's something that we do on a daily basis. As long as you're alive every day, you're engaged in personal branding. And second, at the same time that you are branding yourself to other people, they're also branding themselves to you. So it's like an exchange. And all of this is happening at the same time, even if a large part of it is happening subconsciously. And then second, when we talk about the process by which personal branding works, it happens the moment that you start interacting with someone. As soon as you engage with someone, they're forming an opinion about you, and it's sometimes not even a conscious decision. It's done subconsciously, but it's still being done. During the entire time that you're engaging with that person, they are forming opinions and impressions about you. And the sum of all of those add up to how they are feeling about their overall experience with you. And as I said earlier, how they feel about their overall experience with you forms the basis of how they brand you. So how can you influence this process? Remember first that when it comes to your personal brand, other people ultimately decide how they're going to brand you in their minds based upon the feelings that they have during the interaction and the experience they have with you. So since that's the case, you don't have ultimate control over your personal brand. Now, you have influence, and you have a great deal of influence, and that's because you can strive to give people the best experience possible, and your efforts to do this will influence how other people brand you in their minds. But I want to give you some guidelines about how you can easily influence the personal branding process. And there are some fundamental rules regarding human interaction that are universal and unbreakable. And those rules dictate that people are attracted to certain types of other people, and they're repelled by other certain types of people. And when I tell you these rules, you'll agree that they're both very simple and very logical. And here they are. People are attracted to other people who relieve pressure, reduce stress, and do not cause drama in their lives. And on the other hand, people are repelled by other people who create pressure and cause stress and cause drama in people's lives. So the basis of the experience that you provide for other people should involve relieving pressure, reducing stress, and not causing drama. If you're able to accomplish those things, then you're on your way to building a positive personal brand. And the second step of the personal branding process is the validation of experience. And the second step involves action as opposed to words. Most everyone tries to brand themselves with their words, but words can only get you so far, and you must back those words up with actions. And that's very important because you can say this or that, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But as the saying goes, words are cheap. For example, I know somebody who says constantly, I'm a man of my word and I always do what I say I'm going to do and I always follow through. But when it comes down to it, he often doesn't. So other people's perception of you is based on your actions and not your words. So if you want people to have the correct perception of you, and if you want them to brand you in the right way, then your actions must fall in line with that correct perception. Even if you believe that somebody has the wrong perception of you, perception is reality, and that includes in the employment marketplace and in the workplace. If somebody has a negative perception or an incorrect perception of you, that still represents your personal brand, and that is something that you must guard against. And I have an example that illustrates this point. And this example is not getting back to people when they contact you and they're expecting you to get back to them, or not following up with somebody, not following through when you said that you're going to do something. Because if you do that, then the other person is going to think that you're absent-minded or discourteous at the very least. Now, if it happens more than once, they're going to start to think that you're unreliable. And being branded as unreliable is one of the worst things to be branded as, because being unreliable is close to being untrustworthy. But being somebody who can be trusted is very important, especially in the employment marketplace, because hiring managers, for example, they want to hire people who they have confidence in and they feel that they can trust. And if they feel that somebody is unreliable or untrustworthy, then they're not going to hire them and they're not going to promote them. And I have an example with this of a recent veterinarian that I was working with who works in the animal health industry and has great work experience. But when I sent her resume over to a client of mine, the client said that the person has a reputation of not following through or not following up or responding in a timely manner. So my client declined to interview her. Now, whether that's true, I don't know, but it was my client's perception of this person that she does not follow through. So it cost this person a job opportunity, and she did not even get an interview. And everyone is busy, but all it takes is a few minutes to write an email or make a phone call to follow through. And it's worth the investment of time so that somebody else doesn't have the wrong perception of you. And I talked at the beginning about the fact that personal branding, the catchphrase, did not exist 20 years ago. But something else that did not exist 20 years ago was social media. In fact, we were barely using the internet 20 years ago. But today, 20 years later, social media is a huge phenomenon. It's part of our daily lives, and that includes our professional lives.
So, Stacy, can I ask a quick question before you get into the social media part? Like, I'm wondering, and maybe other people are wondering too. So we're talking about perception versus reality on, our personal branding. So how do we find out if the way we want to be perceived is the way we are being perceived? I mean, you have the insight, I think, of being able to talk with people, and then you hear how other people are responding to their resumes and how they interview. But any quick tips at all for how we can gauge that on our own?
I think the answer is that you don't always know, because you don't always know what other people are thinking or what they're saying about you. And I think it's important to ask for feedback, especially among people that you're close to, but gain feedback from people that you're not close to as well. Just ask for their perception or their feedback. But not every person is always going to be upfront or provide that feedback. I know in the world that I work in the employment marketplace, a lot of times employers just simply will not provide feedback, and it's usually for legal reasons because they don't want to provide feedback, and they're concerned that they might get sued by a candidate for not hiring them. So, for example, with this veterinarian that I just mentioned, I could not give her that feedback, so she doesn't know, why she didn't get an interview. And that's unfortunately the biggest challenge in my world, is that oftentimes somebody doesn't get an interview, and a lot of times it has to do with their reputation or the perception that that person has, and I can't share that feedback. So, but you don't always know, but you can ask around and see what other people feedback they would give you.
I didn't mean to interrupt the flow, but it just that I felt like that was an important question to ask, because you've talked about how important it is and how the perception does become the reality. So I thought, oh, this is a good time to stop you before you get into the social media part.
Yeah, but even more on that, because I think that that's such a critical piece of it, right? Because that's the crux of the branding, is the notion that we know if you hear something negative, it takes X number of times to overcome that negative. But if you're carrying something around that is a negative perception about you, so I know it's not even just a perception, it's a reality. People are exhausted after engaging with me. So, it's like high energy, etc. Could be a positive thing, could be a negative thing. But I do think overcoming those negatives, and I'm sure you're going to get into that with the social media, but if that perception's there and you don't know it's there, and you keep carrying that forward, it does concern me on how long it would take to then overcome that negative perception.
Well, this is where, too, it's really interesting. And then I didn't mean to mess up the flow here, but I've had the advantage of hearing a little bit of this when Stacy and I were talking about what she was going to share. So the social media part is really important as we get into that too, understanding who you want to be and how you want to present yourself, and then taking a real hard look at it. So Stacy, I'm sorry, back to you and your conversation now.
Yeah, those are great questions. I'm glad you stopped me on that point. And keep in mind that in my world, I'm talking with employers and hiring managers on a daily basis. And social media is so important because people have feelings based upon their experience with you, but sometimes their experience occurs on a social media platform. And so we all know that LinkedIn is the professional networking site, and that employers and hiring managers are looking at candidates on LinkedIn. The first thing that my clients do when I send them a resume is they go look at the person's LinkedIn profile. And the second thing they do is look across the other social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And we've had numerous times where an employer didn't like what they saw on social media, and they decided not to go forward. And we had one client that did not like that the person had pictures of them with alcohol. We had another one that there were some curse words on the person's profile. Another one didn't like some of the bikini bathing suit pictures that, and these are all people's personal pages. But I always say, make it private, especially if you're applying for a job, because all it takes is one person not to like what they see at a company to not move somebody forward. So, whatever you're posting, if employers are looking at that, even, your own company officials are looking at that. So whatever you post on the internet, including social media, just expect that somebody is going to see it. We've all heard stories about people getting fired because they posted something negative or badmouthed their current employer. So you have 100% control over what you're posting on social media. But when you're posting on social media, you are branding yourself. And like I said, you don't have direct control over how other people are branding you, but you can influence, and you definitely have control over what you're posting on social media. So there are a number of different ways that mishandling your social media accounts can damage your personal brand. And you're probably aware of some of the ways like we just talked about, but not all of them. For example, having profanity or inappropriate photos associated with your Facebook account. We've had hiring managers say, people look unprofessional. And because of that, when they're posting things like that, they can be branded as unprofessional in the mind of the person looking at that. And so then the word unprofessional is now part of their personal brand. And that's not a word, of course, that anybody wants to have branded as. So, one of the things that happened to me in my world is I submitted a candidate to one of my clients for an executive level role. This was a role, VP role that was reporting directly to a general manager or country president of another country. And the first thing that he did is he went to LinkedIn to look this person's profile up. And the company that he had listed on his LinkedIn profile was a different company than what was listed on his resume. So the general manager called me and he said, I'm looking at the LinkedIn profile, I'm looking at the resume. They both show him as working at different companies. So which one is the correct one? And I said, it's the one on the resume. And he said, well, why doesn't his LinkedIn profile show that employer? So I asked him and he said, well, I set up my LinkedIn profile. I changed jobs. I never updated it. I just don't keep up with LinkedIn. So my hiring manager branded that person is not current with technology. He said, we're not going to interview this person. The person was qualified for the job. He had a similar job at another major this is a major animal health company, and he had a similar job with a competitor. But my client said it's very important that the person I hire is current with technology. And if he's not going on LinkedIn and keeping his profile updated, then he's not current and he's not going to be the best fit for my needs. So even though that was a solid candidate with good credentials, the hiring manager rejected him because of that and then had that perception now this was part of this candidate's brand. So all it takes is one very small oversight like that to damage your personal brand in the eyes of somebody else. You can see how all of those elements are intertwined. And so now I'd also like to discuss the elements of your personal brand that are most important and the most valued. And I mean valued by your current employer or potential new employers, because when it comes to your job, the value that you're providing is the most important aspect of your professional life. Your current employer hired you because of the value that you brought to the table, and a future employer will hire you because of the value that hiring manager believes that you can provide to them. So you want to brand yourself as somebody who will provide value. And the good news is that there are many forms of value in different ways that you can provide value. And those are your skills, both your hard skills or your technical skills and also your soft skills. And your soft skills, that's part of your how you're branding yourself. That's your experience. And all of that value is why an employer would hire you. But an employer wants all of that value for one reason. The organization has a problem and they need somebody to solve it. So essentially, that's what hiring is. Employers have the need in the form of a problem and they hire someone to help them address that need and solve the problem. So the best thing that can be associated with your personal brand is that you're a problem solver. And you want to do everything that you can to convince other people to brand you as someone who can solve problems. Because if a hiring manager doesn't think that you're a problem solver, then they're not going to hire you. And I have another case study to illustrate this, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll be quick. But one of our clients was in the process of setting up a video interview with candidates as part of the next step in the hiring process. And of course, these were important interviews, and if somebody wanted to proceed to the next stage of the process, they had to perform well in the video interview. So the hiring manager emailed me to let me know that one of the candidates was having trouble getting a webcam for the interview. And so as a result, this person said they could not participate in the video interview, which was a problem because we're in the year 2018 and getting a webcam is not very difficult. Many laptop computers are sold with the webcam, and They probably sell them on Amazon. I know they sell them at Best Buy. But this person had an obstacle they could not overcome as part of the interview process, and so that became a problem. And so our client ultimately didn't hire the person because they said, okay, they're not a problem solver and they're not current with technology if they can't get access to a webcam. So, you know, the perception of the hiring manager, how that person branded themselves was not good. They weren't current with technology. So you want to brand yourself as being current with technology, being a problem solver. And I know we're out of time, so I'm going to just make a quick list of things that we've talked about. The experience that you give other people. When you meet somebody, you want to be energetic and enthusiastic. You want to smile, be happy. Don't interrupt or talk over the person. That's a common complaint that I hear with hiring managers and company officials, is that the person in the interview was talking and interrupting and not listening. So practice active listening and not just waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can talk. And then focus on what the other person wants and not what you want. And that's the best way to engage with other people and keep them engaged. And that's what we call the principle of reciprocity. And I'm a big believer in the principle of reciprocity. And if you want to improve your personal brand, I recommend that you research the principle of reciprocity and practice it. I talked about how people are attracted to other people who relieve pressure, reduce stress, and don't cause drama. And on the other hand, how people are repelled by people who create pressure and stress and do cause drama. When you're practicing the principle of reciprocity, you're actively working to relieve pressure and reduce stress in the lives of others. And when you strive to give people what they want, you're doing these things automatically. And that means people are going to associate you with positive feelings. And as a result, they're going to brand you in a positive fashion in their minds. And so approaching situations like this is selfless. And you're thinking about other people before you're thinking about yourself. And if you want to be branded as selfless instead of selfish, then other people will be compelled to help you. So that's a great way to brand yourself. Focus on what you can do for other people and not what they can do for you. So before I close, I just want to say that personal branding has never been as important as it is right now. And the reason is, as a society, we've never been so interconnected as we are right now with the internet and social media. And so our ability to communicate with one another is at an all-time high. We have emails, phone calls, text, internet, chat, social media. And 20 or 30 years ago, the only opportunity that you had for personal branding was when you talked to someone on the telephone or you met them face to face. And so that's why it's so important for you to be aware of how you're being branded today through every interaction that you have with other people, whether it be face-to-face, on the phone, or through social media. So again, personal branding has never been more important than it is right now, and it's going to become even more important in the future. So thank you, Catherine and Brenda, for inviting me today, and I hope this was beneficial.
I think this has been really beneficial, and I know some of you may have to drop off because you've only allowed the the 25 or 30 minutes that we say we try to stick to. But as in keeping with our Bridge Club tradition, we always do have the after party for a few minutes for those who are able to hang in with us. Anybody who has questions or wants Stacy to delve into anything a little bit further that she brought up, now would be a really great time to do that. And if you must leave, feel free to go ahead and do that. We certainly understand, and we want to thank you for coming. So questions, anybody? Questions, everybody? Catherine, you have a question?
I do, because I wasn't able to be on the rehearsal. So I'm like, well, this is so amazing. Can you read your first quote you said at the very beginning about perception? Can you read that again? Do you know which one?
With the toast? The one with the toast?
No, it was right after the toast when you talked about the importance of your perception. You said, don't focus in on, there was a statement that you made about, it's about how people experience you versus how you
So with the smile quote?
I think it was.
Yes. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after having an experience with you becomes your trademark.
Can you copy and paste that into the chat section? I think there's something very powerful about that. Do you know who also said that quote?
I don't know. I was trying to find that, but I think it was somebody in the animal health industry recently is where I heard that. So I'll put it in the chat, and then I'll try to figure out where I saw that or heard that quote.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful as a constant reminder as well. And then I do have one other question, and then I'll let
Other people talk, Catherine?
I know. Is there a book on the principle of reciprocity?
Oh, interesting.
I know that Zig Ziglar talks a lot. I listen to Zig Ziglar and read his books, and I know he talks a lot about the principle of reciprocity. There is also, let me look on my bookshelf. There's a book on networking too that talks about it. I think it's Harvey McKay's book on Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, and I think he talks about that too.
One of the things I love about this whole topic and the way you presented, Stacy, is I actually went to a seminar. It was like a half-day seminar that talked about personal branding. And I walked away from that feeling kind of empty because it was all about what you're doing for yourself. And I love how you have presented how what what you're trying to accomplish with your personal brand, how it reflects on other people. I mean, how other people feel about you. So it's not me, what I want. It's what I can do for you. And I love that whole switch. I thought that was really made it really drive home the fact that it doesn't matter what you want to say about yourself. If you aren't representing yourself in that way and other people aren't experiencing you in a positive way, they're still going to have a negative perception or maybe not see you the way you want to be seen. And it's a whole lot of words to say that this was a whole lot better than what I did in half a day before.
The other day I got a resume from somebody, and at the top of the resume in big bold print it said, "This is what I want." And I was thinking about this because when an employer, a hiring manager, or a recruiter sees a resume, I know this sounds terrible, but they don't care about what you want. They care about, is this person going to be able to solve my company's problems or solve my client's problems? And so I have an opening I'm trying to fill for a client, and I'm looking for somebody that can solve my client's problem, that has the correct experience and is going to be a fit with my client. And so I'm looking for someone that can help my client. And so instead of putting on the top of the resume, "This is what I want," what the person should have done is listed the benefit and the value proposition on why they're a good candidate for the position. And so had they gone on the interview and my client made them an offer, then once they have an offer, they have leverage, and then they can talk about what they want, and that's all become part of the negotiation process. But to start out a relationship by saying, "This is what I want," is the opposite approach to how things should go. It should be, "This is how I'm going to help you solve your problem." Once we figure out how I'm going to do that, then we can talk about how what I want.
I think that's a hugely impactful piece right there, because I think we go into all meetings, business meetings, first encounters with a quote unquote agenda of what we want out of it versus what it's going to be mutually beneficial, that reciprocity again. So I think that's really powerful.
Solving the problems, always a good thing. But you guys have to have some questions. I mean, for crying out loud. Don't let Catherine and I be the only ones.
You're on mute, Henry. Henry, you're on mute. Hang on. I can't unmute you, so you must have to unmute yourself. You're on mute. There you go. Oh, wait. Hang on. We can't hear you. Sorry.
I was just going to say that when my kids were little, I would play Zig Ziglar CDs in our car constantly, to the point where they're rolling their eyes. They're like, okay, they know everything about what Zig Ziglar says. But he says that you can have everything that you want in your life by first giving other people what they want. And that's really the principle of reciprocity. The more value you bring to an organization, the more you're going to get, because you're going to be rewarded for the more value if you look at people in organizations, the people that provide the most value to that organization are the ones that are the most highly compensated and the most well regarded.
It's interesting too that value is not just what you think you bring, but it really is the perception of what you bring. I mean, the perception of those who are making those decisions.
Mhm.
Think as well as you want about yourself, but if other people don't consider you an asset or see you as solving their problems, that sums it up right there. Pretty good.
It really does.
So we are coming upon 1:36 Eastern Time, 12:36 Central Time. Stacy's happy to stay and answer some more questions, but if we don't have any further, then we can say adios and move on with the rest of our days. So one last chance for anybody to
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear Henry.
Yeah, so here's the deal. I'm on the phone and on the thing as well. So depending on which one, I couldn't unmute the phone one, so I have to do this and I hear myself in stereo, which is great. Thanks, Stacy. That was awesome. And thanks,
Thank you.
Bridge Club, Catherine and Brenda. So here's my question. As a creative and someone who's a little bit eccentric, how do you balance your self-expression with what other people have as their take on what your personal brand should be? And I'll give you a real example. So if there was a company, or I'll give you a kind of fake example, but based on somewhat reality. If there is a company that looks at you, or looks at me in this case, and were to say, you know what, he's not what our typical hire would look like, from the way he looks, from the way he speaks, from the way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Would I change who I am or how I present myself to the world to fit into a box? Or would I just say, you know what, I probably wouldn't want to work there either. Pass. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And maybe we'll help you hire somebody that fits into that mold.
You know, Lee Cockrell has a podcast. He used to run the Walt Disney. He used to run Magic Kingdom. And he has a business podcast. And he was working at a hotel that was owned by Marriott, I believe. And he had long hair, and this was back in 1970s, I think. And it was the head of the company, I think it was Mr. Marriott, saw him in the kitchen working, and he said, "You're doing a great job, but if you want to rise in this company, you need to look the part. You need to cut your hair. You need to look polished and professional." And so he did that. And he said, instead of, me coming to work and trying to make my own personal statement, I'm kind of a rebel, I've got my long hair, I'm going to fit into the corporate culture, and I'm going to do what the head of the company wants me to do. And so he ended up becoming the head of the Walt Disney. He ran Magic Kingdom and some other business units. So I think it's just up to the individual. I mean, if you're not fitting in with that culture, then you have two choices. You can either leave and go somewhere else, or you can adapt and do what is necessary to survive in that culture.
And neither one is wrong, right?
Neither one is wrong. You have to do what you're most comfortable with, but just know that if you're not fitting the culture, you may not be as successful rising up in that company. And so you may choose to go where you're a better fit in a different culture.
But I would add to that in saying, so what's interesting is if you have the established reputation and the perception of who you are, and then as you evolve and grow, you can ride the wave of that as you become authentically who you are at work. It's an interesting thing. Both Brenda and I are playing with this perception piece right now, and the fact that she and I have always been very buttoned up, very polished. when it comes to when we're in the industry, but we're trying to let our hair down just a little bit more with the Bridge Club and the way we're going about it. And I mean, chime in here, Brenda, but it's been awkward for us a little bit to be a little more comfortable because that's not who we have typically been. But it's also, this is our company, it's a little different.
Right, but even though it really is who we are. I mean, comfortable and honest and forthright is who we really are. We've just been in so many corporate situations in our careers where you can't say everything you would like to say. Now we kind of can because it's our company. So it's,
But
where we draw that line,
But to the point of all of it's made available online, video. So let's say he and I decide to take a job somewhere else later. To Stacy's point of view, we're also very careful about making sure that we don't go too far, right? Because all that social media content and what we want people to still see us as very intelligent, very knowledgeable people that are going to take something forward. We just happen to have a little more personality. Is what we're, I guess, trying to pull forward. But what Stacy says is very true. We do have that filter on before we send anything out.
Yeah, but a lot of people.
Well, and keep in mind, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but there's always consequences to what you do in the choices that you make. I mean, we had a candidate in our firm that was a model, and there's a website out there. I did not even know this website existed, but one of our clients found this website with some photos. So she had done some swimsuit modeling, and some of the photos of her online our client thought were a little risque. And so one of the executives at this company found the photos and said, I would be uncomfortable if our client found those photos online. I just don't feel like that's the best representation of our brand. So I actually, in that case, had permission from my client to disclose to her why they weren't moving forward. So I shared that. And she said, well, this is something I do on my own time. It has nothing to do with my job or this company. And that's all fine. I mean, she can do whatever she wants, but, just know that there are consequences to the choices. And so that client didn't like that those photos were online. So they also had a choice not to hire her.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think that's why we still put the filter on it a little bit.
And it's good to get that good feedback. I think no matter who you are, what you're doing, it's nice if someone does say, hey, I know you as a person. I know your sincerity or, earnestness or whatever it is. But did you ever think about how this might play, right? I mean, I think that's where we have friendships, whether they're business friendships or personal friendships. It's nice to know if there are people who can come to you and just, grab you by the elbow or just like, tap you in the shoulder and say, just wanted to share this. You can do what you want with it. But I think for all of us here, some of us know each other, some of us don't. But to me personally, anyway, it's nice to know if there is someone who is looking through the lens that I can't see and, is willing to share, as you did, Stacy, with that candidate, a piece of information that could be really valuable to her as she's making her career decisions going forward, or even personal decisions too. So I think we are a community of individuals who are here to kind of help each other a little bit too. So it's an interesting point where we can help. Okay, I know I'm becoming the sappy one like I always am, but that's
she's our feeler.
I'm the feeler, I'm the sappy one. You guys who know me know that. So, okay. So we are coming up on 1:43, 12:43, 11:43, 10:43. So any last questions? And then if not, we will let Stacy or ask Stacy to please do a quick little wrap up and then we'll say adios. All right. Stacy.
Yeah, so just, my wrap up is just keep all of this in mind as you go about your daily work life, personal life, create, positive experiences for people that don't cause drama, that add value. Think about the principle of reciprocity and helping other people before expecting something in return. And I think the world will be a better place if all of us try to add value and strive to help other people every day.
Thank you, Stacy. Thanks everybody for spending this time with us today. We really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you all again on the Bridge Club. So
Cheers, everybody.
here's the rest of your day.